All right, so we're diving into Behind the Cloud today. And let me tell you, this book, it's like a masterclass for anyone, tech or not, who's looking to build something great. Benioff, he doesn't just tell the Salesforce story, he kind of lays out this like blueprint.
Yeah, and what's so cool is it's not just some generic how-to, right? It's Benioff's own journey, like his evolution as a leader,
Mm,
shows you how hitting those numbers, it's just one piece of the puzzle.
totally. It's like he figured out how to connect personal growth with like that entrepreneurial drive.
And speaking of figuring things out, one of the things that jumped out at me was Benioff's whole thing about being customer obsessed. But like, not just saying it, he's talking about really getting in there, understanding what customers need, carrying the bag, he calls it. Carrying the bag. It's
Yeah.
more than just a saying, though, right? It's like this whole philosophy. He learned from his own mentors, from his own experience, that getting out there, especially in those early stages, and talking to customers directly, it's huge.
Totally. It's like he was building more than just a product. He was building an experience. And that's where the whole carrying the bag thing comes in, right?
Yeah.
Like getting your hands dirty. He learned that it's not just a sales tactic, it's how you actually come up with the best ideas.
Exactly. He even talks about how something as small as moving the login button on their website made a big difference. And that came from watching how people were using the platform.
It's like he baked customer feedback into Salesforce from the very beginning. It wasn't enough to just be good. He wanted to build something people were actually stoked to use.
And that's what's so important, being willing to constantly learn and adapt. It never stops. You have to be open to being wrong, to trying things out, and really listening to what your customers are telling you.
He even talks about surveying his own team. Like, are you doing the best work of your life here? Do you feel valued? Leading by example.
Exactly. That's so smart. And it brings up another thing Benioff was great at, putting together amazing teams. He knew early on that the people you surround yourself with, that's everything.
Oh, yeah. He even talks about, like, poaching some big talent from Oracle back in the day. And it wasn't just about filling seats. It was about finding those A players, the ones who not only had the skills, but who also fit the culture he was building at Salesforce.
But it's interesting because it wasn't just about like finding rock stars, you know. He knew that even the most talented people, they need the right environment to do their best work. So he created a culture that encouraged people to learn, to grow, and to actually have fun.
Yeah, like employee happiness was a key performance indicator or something. And Benioff, he really walked the walk, especially with that whole 1.1.1 model for philanthropy right from the start.
Right. Talk about thinking long term. Building a company that's about more than just the bottom line. That 1.1.1 model, 1% of equity, product, and employee time dedicated to giving back. It was baked into Salesforce from day one.
It's one thing to talk about social responsibility, but to actually make it part of your business model, that's pretty awesome.
And I think that resonates especially with younger folks coming up.
Yeah.
It's like you're not just coming to work for a paycheck, you're joining something bigger.
And, it's not like they were just writing checks either. It was about actually using what Salesforce was good at to make a difference.
Totally. Like being a tech company, they didn't just donate software, right? They actually provided training and support, helped those nonprofits really use those tools to achieve their own missions.
Speaking of missions, Benioff, he definitely knew how to market, even back when Salesforce was just starting out. Like, he wasn't afraid to take risks, try crazy stuff to get noticed.
Yeah, his marketing strategy, it was like almost like guerrilla warfare sometimes. Like, remember those protests they staged outside their competitors' events?
Oh man, those were classic. Like a bunch of people dressed as stormtroopers holding signs that said, no software.
So good. And you know, the funniest part is a lot of times those competitors, they'd totally fall for it. Like they'd make a big deal out of it and then boom, free publicity for Salesforce.
Totally backfired on him. But Benioff also knew how important it was to like connect with journalists, get people talking.
Oh, for sure. He understood how powerful a good story can be.
He even says in the book that he'd rather spend money on an epic launch party than on traditional advertising. But we're not talking about some boring industry dinner, right?
No, no, no. These were events, think like amazing speakers, valuable takeaways, and always an element of surprise. He knew how to get people talking.
He even talks about like specific seating arrangements and activities to encourage people to actually talk to each other.
He wanted people to connect, share ideas, walk away feeling inspired. That whole idea of connection, it fed into his approach to partnerships too.
Right. He was all about collaboration, building a whole ecosystem around your product or service.
Even if it meant working with potential competitors. Like a rising tide lifts all boats, right? Find people who complement your strengths, create win-win situations.
And he takes it a step further, saying that, like, your customers, they're your most important partners.
Exactly. It's about building those relationships and really listening to what your customers need.
From those early free trials, which were kind of a big deal back then, to like constantly improving customer support, he wanted to create this constant feedback loop.
Even suggesting you pick up the phone and call customers directly just to check in.
Show them you actually care.
And that customer-centric approach, it extended to his sales strategy as well, right?
Big time. Benioff was all about really understanding what the customer needed and then showing them how Salesforce was the answer. Not about that pushy sales stuff.
No, it was about educating your customers, empowering them to make the best decision.
Because at the end of the day, if you're genuinely solving a problem for someone, the sale, it kind of just happens naturally.
And that's how you build those long-term relationships, the kind that are based on trust.
And that's what it's all about, right? Benioff, he knew that if your customers are successful, then you're successful. And that's what's so impressive, right? It's like he was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers, thinking way ahead, building for the long haul. And when you talk about long haul, you got to talk about going global.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the biggest lessons from behind the cloud, what flies in one market, it can totally crash and burn in another.
He even tells that funny story about how, their tagline, finger licking good. Yeah, not so much in China.
Yeah, I think it translated to something like eat your fingers off or something wild like that.
Oops.
Yeah, big oops. Just goes to show you, those cultural differences, they matter.
So how do you avoid that? Like, how do you get it right when you're expanding globally?
Adaptability. You got to be ready to switch things up. He calls it the rinse and repeat method. Find out what works, tweak it, then scale it up. But always, always keep an eye on what's happening in that local market.
Which probably means finding the right people is crucial, especially in those new markets, right?
Totally. He learned pretty quickly that you got to empower those local leaders. Give them the reins. They're the ones on the ground. They understand the culture. They can react quickly.
It's like finding that balance between having a strong global brand, but also letting those local teams do their thing.
Exactly. And it's not just the culture. It's the way they do business, too. Like, he found out that in Japan, that whole top-down sales approach that works so well here, not so much. Building relationships, getting everyone on board, that's what mattered there.
So easy to miss those things when you're just laser focused on recreating your success somewhere new.
Oh, yeah. You got to stay agile, be open to feedback, and honestly be okay with messing up sometimes.
Yeah.
Benioff, he actually sees those oops moments as learning opportunities.
He actually encourages his team to embrace those why not moments, the challenges that force you to think differently, try something new.
It's all about that mindset.
Yeah.
And to help channel that energy, he talks about this framework, V2MOM.
V2MOM. Okay, break that down for us.
So it stands for vision, values, methods, obstacles, and measures.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a way to set big, hairy, audacious goals and then actually map out how you're going to get there.
So like a roadmap, but with like detours built in.
Exactly. It's about being realistic. And the best part is, this V2MOM thing, it's not just for Salesforce. Benioff, he's like, use it for anything. Starting a business, going after a personal goal, you name it.
Which leads us to that final thought Benioff leaves us with. He challenges everyone to really look at their own industries, and find those outdated ways of doing things.
Those things that everyone just accepts as the norm. But if you stop and think about it, there's probably a better way.
Love that. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Behind the Cloud, the question for you is, what's your V2MOM? What's that bold vision you have? And what's that first step you can take today to start making it real?
Think big. Don't be afraid to go for it. And remember what Benioff taught us. Real success, it's not just about building an amazing company. It's about making the world a better place.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Until next time.
Thank you for watching. If you're passionate about learning and want to level up your knowledge, make sure to hit that subscribe button. On our channel, we break down the best books into easy-to-digest summaries that will help you become smarter, think critically, and make better decisions. Don't miss out on your chance to grow and stay ahead.